Hello everybody and welcome to this week's live mapping session. I'm Rolf Schermann of Fantasy Software and I hope to show you a bit more of Campaign Cartographer tonight. And we have a few less viewers on the YouTube session than we usually are. I hope it's just the after Easter slow down. Everybody's still in stupor from all the family dinners and stuff. But however it is, this video will be available for later viewing anyway. So we'll forge ahead and everybody's welcome to join in. If you have any questions during the session, post them in the YouTube comments and Sue will forward them to me. And I'll see what I can answer during our session today. Today I want to go back to the very beginnings of our campaign, or Cartographer's annual subscription idea, in which we launched in 2007. And this is the first style I've ever produced myself for the annual, and it's still one I actually quite like, and I've also revisited it in a later annual issue at some point. But tonight we'll be looking at the original one. And so no need to blame you. I could have checked that we had an announcement for this session on the forum and everything, and the forum was down for a while today anyway, so no worries about that. The Mercator Historical style we are looking at tonight is named after probably the most famous cartographer of modern mapmaking, Gerhard Mercator, who his name lives on in the Mercator projection, one of the most commonly used ways to project our nice little globe onto a flat surface. And many of the maps you'll have seen in history books and classrooms in your youth would be based on his projection. And he produced many maps in his lifetime, and together with a whole atlas of maps of the whole world at the time. And this style is trying to recreate a little bit the style of big maps were done in his time, which is the 16th and 17th centuries. Obviously, it doesn't fully recreate the incredible look of the craftsmen at the time, but it gives an idea of the general look of those maps. And if you spend the time to create a map at the detail as they did for their maps and atlases at the time, you might get something fairly similar. So we've got an example map up on here, but let's start a new map to begin from the ground up. For that, I'm going up to our file toolbar and clicking the new map icon. And the map type we are creating is obviously overland maps today. And normally we continue with the site settings myself to create a map in the size of our own choosing. But today I want to use one of the special templates, like the one here in the example map, where you have the two hemispheres shown side by side, which can't be really recreated in its full detail with the map wizard. And therefore, we have a predefined template for that. So we switch to the pick predefined template option, click next, and this opens up a file browser with all the templates available for overland maps. Here, if you haven't seen that before, you can switch between showing large and small previews of the maps or the templates in here. And if you want to switch to a different path, look for other templates, you can click the select path icon and navigate through your CC3+ program data folder to find the templates you're looking for. But we are already in the correct location here, and let's go for the large picture so you can see more. These are some prepared projection templates from Fractal Terrains. Let's have a look further down. See lots of different templates in here. And here are Mercator style templates. Some just typical rectangular ones, and also these hemisphere maps, which are actually not in the Mercator projection, but because the Mercator projection is rectangular, so the name is not quite fitting in this instance. And we want to go for the whole globe, i.e. showing both hemispheres, so this is the template we want to use. Let's see, it's got a sea background with the texture on top of it, and as is common in most older styles, the sheet effects are not enabled by default. So I'm going to do this now, clicking on the Sheets and Effects indicator to bring up the dialog, say Activate Sheet Effects, and click OK. And we can see we have a very strong blur here, more than we normally want on a map. And we're going to fix this by, see, we've got some effect presets here, and the effects are probably still in an older CC3 version. So we're just going to switch to the normal Mercator style. It says we have some sheets missing here, which are saved in the effects listing, but we don't need to add these at this point. We can always do so later if needed. And then apply. And see, this is a much better effects with the blur of the wavy sea texture, which we want, and everything else just blurred a little bit to make the harsh vector lines into a more hand-drawn look. That's one of the key features of this style. It is all vector driven. It doesn't use any bitmap symbols, just all vector drawn symbols, and that gives us some extra options. It also introduces some extra problems, but we'll see that when we go on, because I want to show you some of the special properties of the symbols in this style. But the first things first, so what we want to draw is some continental outlines for our world map we are creating here. This is obviously a whole spherical world like our Earth, so we'll need some continents on here. And we're just going to start by, we could either load up the symbol catalogs, the C that has a shortcut to the Land Default tool, or we can go through the drawing tool icon here up on the left. Let's grab the one here from the symbol catalog and start drawing the first landmass. Let's start out by a northern hemisphere landmass here and just draw a simple landmass coastline. I'm clicking every point I click gives me a section of fractalized coastline. If we zoom in a bit closer, you can see that perhaps might be a bit hard on the background, but here we go. Let's cross the equator here. So here we are looking at a climate like the Middle Americas or Central Africa. Going up here, we're going into Northern Africa and Europe. And for now, first I'll just keep my continent in one of the hemispheres, so I don't have to bother about the border of the map here. We've got the first question from Sue herself. Can you copy and paste in Fractal Terrains 3 outline into this template if it is exported with the same projections? Yes, you can. The major thing is I think you can't do a projection with two hemispheres like this in fractal terrains, but you can do them one at a time. You can do the western and the eastern hemisphere separately and import these into the map separately and then convert them into the landmass and everything. So yes, that's certainly a possibility. Okay, Patrick says he's got troubles downloading with his troubles with his Profantasy account. Please just shoot me an email at help@profantasy.com, and as soon as I can, which will be tomorrow, I'll be able to fix your access to your Profantasy account. Not right now though, sorry about that. And next up, I want to look what happens at the edge of the map border. Oh yeah, okay, great. Patrick's already sent in the email. I'll look at that later. Obviously, what the map shows is a continuous sphere, so you wouldn't have a gap like the map border here between the two hemispheres in your actual landmass. So what do you do when you have a landmass crossing this section? What I do, I just first draw one half of the part on one of the hemispheres, and I cross the map border here, just drawing beyond that, not bothering about their exact shape. Go to a refresh, and you can see our template conveniently hides the stuff we've drawn beyond the border. And now what we can do is we can simply go in, take a good look where to start our next section. The latitude lines give us an indication of where this point of the continental coastline hits the map border, and as these two pieces would need to match, if you pass them together, it should be at the exact same point. So I'm just drawing landmass across this border, so it crosses at the matching spot. The thing is, this will obviously not be an exact numerical fit because I just did it by hand, but on a map like this, which would normally be hand-drawn anyway, the tiny difference that would be there would not be noticeable anyway, and the hand-drawing cartographer might do a similar mistake or have a similar difference. So I'm not too bothered about that. But I'm also going to show you how to match this exactly if you want. So the other thing is the next where I leave the map again, I should again check that I'm matching the opposite position here. It looks pretty accurate. Go, and then I just close my landmass. And now I've got a landmass that crosses the map border here, and it's close enough in matching that nobody will notice if we are off by a fraction of a map unit or anything. But there may be some, especially for more scientific maps, perhaps in a different style, that want to have this way more exact. We can still do it a different way. So let's have a look. If we had another coastline. Here we go, on this edge of the hemisphere. And we are also quite a bit farther away from the matching edge, which would be over here all the way to the left. And how do we get these points to match up? Well, for that, we could use our trusty temporary drawing construction lines. We don't have them available as a tool on this style, so we'll just do them by hand. Switch to a temporary layer. I'm going to stay on the land sheet here. I'm going to delete this line anyway later. And I'm going to grab the line. And now I want to attach the start of this line exactly to the point where my coast matches the map border. And for that I'm gonna turn on, I'll zoom in closely, click on the point where the two match, and zoom out, and then I'm going to turn off the ortho snap here, which means the next line I'm drawing will be exactly horizontal or exactly vertical. And then I'm just going to draw it across here, and this gives me the matching reference point on that edge of the map. Then I'm going to do exactly the same with the lower edge. Here we go. And now I can zoom in here. Start my landmass again. And I can even use the intersection modifier, which gives me the intersection of two entities. I can click the intersection mod here on the lower right, or I can just press F6, choose the first entity, second entity, and then I need to turn off my ortho modifier again. And then I'm just going to draw the continental outline. Again, for this point I use the intersection modifier, and then I'm going to finish the map by hiding it behind the map border. Finish the continent. There we go. See, these two match up perfectly, and now I just need to delete my construction lines. And I'm done. Perfect. That looks nice. And we can start by filling out or putting some land in the last hemisphere here we have on the map. Well, we've got another question. How difficult will it be to transfer a map? I have already drawn it on the style. How difficult is always a difficult question to answer, but yeah, it's certainly possible. What I suggest is to see how large your original map is and create a template in the same size in this style, or a new map from the template in the same size in this style, and then just copy over your coastline into the new map instead of trying to work on the existing drawing and convert everything. Just copy the parts over you need one at a time. You always use a common reference point, so 0, 0 or the lower left corner, and you'll have everything matching together, and then use the change like drawing tool command to convert stuff like the coastline into your landmass, the rivers into your new style and everything. And it does take a little bit of time, but it's fairly simple to do like that. I'm pretty sure we've got some tutorials for that on YouTube by now, or in the forum at least. If not, it's certainly something I should be doing at some point here in the live mapping videos. Okay, I was going to add another landmass, big continent here, the northern edge. Let's again cross the map border a little bit, or go fairly far north, or continent that reaches close to the North Pole. There we go. And again, this time I'm not gonna be absolutely exact with my borders. Instead, I'm gonna match this by eye. Here somewhere, that looks pretty good. Let's see which one we have. That should be this here. Yep, that looks pretty good. And then we are need to add some large islands and perhaps small subcontinents, because not everything will be in one big blob of landmass. Always make sure you have some islands of your coasts on larger maps, because just an unbroken line of coast without any islands is a very rare thing on Earth, and it will just give your map a little bit more believability if you stick to what people expect from a map when they know the way about a real-world atlas. Unless you have a very good reason not to, of course. If your fiction, if your idea of you might have a reason for a perfectly circular landmass without any islands, so more power to you. You just have to make that clear and explain that to people when they are confused about your world. No sense in having an interesting idea and special layout without the people not understanding what it is about and why it is there. Again, everything, of course, only from my point of view and the expectations of a map. If you're just drawing your map for you, yourself alone, without having a need to show it off and have other people comment and criticize on it, go ahead, no problem with that. And then you don't need to justify anything you draw to other people. Okay, I'm pretty happy with my map outline so far. Here's our new fresh world with how many continents that is. That's 3 or 4, however you count, whether you count the big one on top as one big supercontinent that's just separated by strait, or if it's actually 2 continents, probably 2 continents. And so that should give you plenty of space to fill up with fictional cultures and adventures and whatever you need from it. And if you don't like a coastline, which I find myself, I'm not very fond of this section here, so it does look a little bit less detailed than others, you can always use the drawing tools with the E for edit to change what you've drawn. And just give it a little bit more variety. That's better. And if you're going to go wild and for Slati Bartfast style award with fjords and everything, then you can spend a lot of time on detailing your map sections here. I'm already finding that it's probably a little bit too much blur on my coastlines. Could be a bit more crisp, so what I can go in at this point, go to my coastline sheet, take a look at the blur effect, and see it's percent of drawing extents width, means takes into account how large the whole map is. But I'm just gonna half it, half the size, apply, and that's better. Looks a lot more sharp from this zoom level. And the glow on the coastlines, the outer glow on the land could also perhaps a bit smaller. See, it's blur radius of 6. Let's make it 4. There we go. This way I tend to adjust my sheet effects as I go along to fit the map I'm drawing. Okay. So what's next? Well, next I want to add some mountain ranges, and that's a good opportunity to take a little bit look at the symbols we have in this map. First I'm going to load my Minerals and Mountains catalog here up from the symbol catalog toolbar. So a few people got the Hitchhiker's Guide reference. Very good. Excellent. Important work of science fiction, not to be forgotten. So, and if you don't know it, look it up. It's an amazing radio show and book. So we have some mountain symbols here, and if we have, no, we don't have the varicolor. Oh, actually, we do have varicolor versions here. You can see the left hand side does have where you can change the color of the symbols before you place them. And but we're going to stick with the, well, actually probably I'm going to use a little bit of darker brown than the default, so I'm going to go with the varicolor versions of the symbols. And let's take one of the mountains here, click it, and the first what you'll notice is that the checking indicator here on the left goes bright red right away, and if you can't read it on the video, it says multiple sheets. And that's because the symbol separates into multiple sheets when you place it on the map. And you might not notice right away, there's our mountain. But you can see if I refresh the screen, the brown background, the brown of the symbol vanishes quite strongly. You know, the outline does have black, it's still fairly visible, though also a bit too blurred too much. I'm going to change this in a second. But the brown background is blurred a lot more strongly than the black outline. So let's first take a look. We do have two sheets in here. We have symbols and symbols color. Symbols both have the blur effect, but the symbol color also has a transparency effect. Let's first fix the blur on our outline. Again, it looked like halving our effect size was a good thing to do. Yeah, that's better. That way we can see them a little bit more clearly. And what the style does is, because it doesn't just mainly wants the outline of the symbols shown as drawn with a pen, therefore the black lines. But it also wants to depict it as if there was a little bit of coloring done on them, but just with a faint color showing most of the background through. And because you can't do both at the same time with a bitmap, with a full bitmap symbol, because if you've got a symbol and want to apply a blur to it, it will blur it to the whole symbol. Therefore, we came up with these ideas of symbols that split into multiple ones and go on different sheets when you place them. And so, for example, we could turn off the blur effect even here on the symbol color sheet. Just to show you, there you can see the brown outline much more closely. We can also make the blur on this one a little bit smaller. Let's half it. See, it's a bit more strongly, but it's still very distinct from the outline. And the transparency effect is there again to fade the coloring into the surroundings and the backgrounds at the same time. So the 50% opacity is just fine. And this does have some disadvantages though. Let's have a look. If I take another symbol and if I overlap the symbols like I would want to do it on a normal bitmap style map, see, that looks fine. But if I now refresh the screen, it's not so clear, but look, let's turn off sheet effects. Oops, we can see it better then. You can see that we can see the outline through the symbol in front. See the extension of the mountain outline here is visible in the other symbol. That's because it's on different sheet. Basically, the outline's on the same sheet, and the background drops on the other sheet, and you can't mix the drawing order of those sheets. So all the outlines are in front of all the backgrounds of the symbols. That means we do need to move the symbols apart and not have them overlap that strongly in the map. Otherwise we'll get these ugly overlaps. But if I just overlap them a little bit so that it's not too obvious, or if I place them so that they do not overlap at all, it looks just fine. Let's take a look at the symbols themselves. If I go on Symbol Manager, you can see that I do have these outlines, and the backgrounds are actually shown in white here because they are varicolors, so the way you don't see them, but those are the background parts, and basically they become different symbols in the symbol manager. Each symbol becomes two parts, and you can see that it appends the number here at the back to make them different names, because you can't have a symbol with the same name twice in a drawing. So see the mountain, this mountain separates into the background 412 and the foreground 413. This actually would be the mountain varicolor 4, and then the number 12 and 13 gets appended. You could now go in and change these around individually. So if I went in and edited this mountain and made the outline, say, from black into red, dark red, that would affect the outline as normal here on the map. Let's change that back. Color all, which like this one. There we go. There, just black again. And how do we set up such a symbol though? For that, we'll probably need to load up the symbol catalog for a moment, because we only have the separate symbols in here. Let's have a look. Click Open and change to Symbol Catalog. Let's go to our Program Data folder, C3+, Symbols, Maps, and your Mercator, and load up the Mountains catalog. Yes, I want. And let's have a look at the symbols in here. You can see here's the symbols in their full glory. Mountains. Let's take one of the mountains here. Edit it. And have a look at some of its entities. Let's take a look at an outline piece. Looks fairly standard. It's a polygon with the color 0, which is black, on the symbol definitions sheet. And the only thing that might be odd, if you're used to the properties of entities in Campaign Cartographer, is that the line style says symbols. Or if you use the extract properties on this piece, you see here the line style is symbols. And we also have the line style symbol color in here. And if you check, you can see that the background has the line style symbol color. And if we go into the Symbol Manager again and take a look at the options of the symbol, see it has this option checked, convert line style names to sheets. And if you check this option on the symbol, Campaign Cartographer will look at the names of the line styles in the symbol and put all the entities on the matching sheets of their line style names. So if all the entities that have the line style symbols will go on the symbol sheet, and all the entities with the line style symbols color will go on the symbols color sheet. And this is a bit of a workaround. Obviously, line styles are not meant for this, but especially at the time when C3 was pretty new and we're still looking at ways to make sheet effects work and symbols work with sheet effects and everything, that was a convenient way to have this definition of how to convert symbols into multiple pieces and put them on the sheets they are supposed to go on. So if you're creating your own symbols that way, if you have a symbol and you want to have it on multiple sheets at once, then you can define your own line styles in the drawing and assign the entities of the symbol to certain line styles and enable this option. Well, this is already pretty advanced work and nothing you need to really know if you're creating your landmasses, but it's good to know when you're working on a map like this to see what Campaign Cartographer is doing. Now, where did I save my map? Don't tell me yeah, the problem is I did start from a predefined template, and those do not prompt you to save your map. So I probably just saved it under a temporary name, and I'm not entirely sure where I placed it. Oh, actually I should switch to the file type drawing so I can actually see my again. I can change the autosave function. No, actually we are on the autosave saved most of the work, just a few symbols missing. So instead of going to hunt for my map that I saved, I'm just gonna work with this version. Just gonna save it in my video folder so I know where it is. Never continue working on your autosave file. If you reopen it, just immediately save it again under a different name, or you're just running into danger of the autosave. Yes, Remy, that's right. I wanted to use the recent file, but the map I thought saved isn't on there. It's just the template. And I saved it on the map, I think, but it's not on the recent file list, and I'm not entirely sure why. So that's why I just use the autosave file. Okay, yeah, Patrick wanted to create a volcano from all the symbols. That's certainly possible, and I think we already have a volcano on the revisited Mercator style. But that's certainly something you can add yourself to your Mercator style. So we've got a fairly small scale of these mountains to the map, and that's probably a bit too small for me to fill very properly within the session, or perhaps even on a standard map. So what I'm gonna do, yeah, and then it's I wanted to change to the darker brown color I had used before. There we go. And I want to change my symbol scale a little bit. I've got a default scale of 8. Could go put in 12 in here. That's probably more useful at this scale. So what I'm gonna do is because I want to keep that scale as the default, I'm gonna go into my drawing properties and set this default symbol scale to 12. That way I don't have to bother about setting it to that when start loading and saving the map or between sessions. So default scale of 12, and set normal will then always put the scale back to this default. Of course I need to remove one way to I've got some smaller mountains in here now, of course, and my gut reaction is just simply to erase them and just redraw them because it's just 2 of them. But what you can also do, of course, especially if you've placed more symbols in the map already and found that they are too small or too large, you can rescale them all at the same time. And the symbols menu has a very convenient option for that. Symbols, scale symbols and map. Select them by right-clicking, or you can select via all symbols or something like that. And do it. And now let's scale the symbol reference from 8 to 12, which is a factor by 1.5. That's what I type. And now they should match the new default symbol size. Yep. Go, and now we can draw a nice big mountain range to our map. If you take a look at these historical maps in the atlases of Mercator and his contemporaries, you'll notice that most of these maps actually have very few what we call symbols in them. They're mostly made of lines or of dots for rivers and cities and text labels, and the occasional little mountain symbol that shows a whole mountain range or some hills. And that way they are quite different from what we normally do in campaign cartographer nowadays. The beauty they have is mostly often made up of just all the little details in there, and it's just if you try to extract an individual symbol from them or something, you'll notice that's nothing special in itself. It's just the agglomeration of all the work and labels and stuff that's gone into it that make up the beauty of the overall piece. Of course, I don't have this time for a masterpiece like that, even if I could do it on a live mapping session. So we're just going to go with some mountain symbols, some hills, and perhaps the occasional tree or so to put on the map. I should have prepared a few examples of maps like these to show off in the video, but I haven't. Sorry about that. So you'll have to Google Mercator and Mercator Atlas and 17th century maps, and you'll find a lot of examples of historical maps. Beautifully, many collections, libraries, and museums have made their document collections available digitally in the last few years, and you find a lot of wonderful collections of old maps if you look around a little bit, just for your perusal. No fees required or anything. It's just a great time if you love maps. It looks pretty good for some mountains. You can see if I do refresh with the sheet effects, the color background of the symbols blurs pretty strongly into the background. And here we are, we've got some trees. That's actually something you'll find very rarely on the big world maps of the time. But for us fantasy cartographers, big huge forests are of course also a little bit more of interest than to the explorer of the time, who was very much focused on coastlines and ship routes. And feature like a forest on a map like this would not have been very important to him. And we can also, if we want to color a larger area, we can use just one of the tools. If we just make the whole thing green, if the Cartographer had used some colored inks or watercolors on this map, yeah, you can see the background here, and this is now actually a little bit too strong for my taste on this map, so we are gonna have a look which sheet is this on. This is actually on the symbol color sheet, and we can perhaps make the transparency a little bit stronger, yeah, to soften the color a little bit more, giving more of an aged look to the map if the colors have faded over time. Yeah, that looks good. And then let's add some cities. These would of course be very important of the cartographer of the time, ports and important cities to reach. Go. Another one up here. One up here. Yes, Patrick says that medieval maps are something else again entirely. This is certainly not a medieval map style anyway. So, as I said, 17th century or perhaps late 16th century first maps like these. But this is early modern times. Good chunk, a good 100 years into early modern times, and medieval maps is not something we could use to navigate nowadays, really. Although if you look at some of them, they're actually more like road maps, like showing waypoints on itineraries on the map, and would be useful for the people at the time. But they are very different from what we expect from a map today. And we do have a very nice map style for road maps like this, which just follow a route or a road and show the distances between points without being really concerned about features on the map are related to each other. And Ellen Bowker did a wonderful map style also in this annual issue or the next one, annual year or the next one, not quite sure right now. And we should take a look at that at some point. But back to our map. Another important thing on at least some maps of the time is borders, where certain nations have their borders to each other, and this style has some drawing tools for that. And again, these use varicolors. See, this is the style here, and this is something you can follow coastline with, and then draw the line in here. Again, follow the coastline. Oh, I went round the coastline the wrong direction. Okay, but you can see we do have the edge fade effect on that, so it gives a nice colored outline, similar to the way borders would be shown on maps of the period. But let's redo this properly. See that I follow my coastline correctly. Let's just go to this point here. There we go. That's better. And you would show different countries in different colors. No, that's not what I'm doing correctly here. I'm actually too far away here to properly do this. Let's zoom in a bit closer and actually start over and start on the other border. You can follow that and draw a national border here along the mountain range. Follow the coastline again back to my original point. There we go. And here we've got the other nation. And this is very strong now, the colors, and are very wide, so it's probably a bit wide for the style. So to change that, I go to my border sheet, look with the edge fade effect, and let's make them less wide. So let's say 1.2 units. So that's looking better already. And perhaps blur it a little bit more. There we go. Okay, how do you trace a coastline? Yeah, good question. Let me show you. I've explained that a few times, but it's always a bit hard to do at the start. Choose the color for our border here. Let's take a green border. I start my border somewhere where I do not need any tracing. Just up here, and I want to start my trace up here on the northern coast. For that, the command then tells me press T to trace the outline of another entity. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press T. Now select entity to trace. That's what I'm doing. And the important point is to select the entity on a section where you want your trace to go along. You always have two possible directions on a polygon. You can go left or you can right. And Cartographer does not know by itself which way you want to trace it. So you do show that by clicking on the entity where you want to your tracing line to go along. So I want to go left, so I click left from the point I start my trace. So here, and then I'm selecting my starting node for the trace. So I want to start here, and now I know Cartographer knows I want to go this way. You can, it's unfortunately hard to see on the video, but if you're doing it yourself, you'll see that the line is shown as a preview, as a temporary line. If I go left here, it follows my cursor. If I go the other way, because I told it to go left the trace, it will go all around the entity and come back from the right here. So basically the little way I'm going to the right here is the empty spot, and therefore it will look wrong if you do this. So I chose the entity to trace here on the left, so I need to go left with my trace. I'm going to follow this all along to end, and then end my trace here on the next border. Then I've got my normal line in here again and could continue drawing by hand, but I can also start a new trace because I want to trace the next border. So I'm going to just press T again. Again, select the border on a section where I want my trace to go along. Here, and my starting point is here on the coast. Then I'm going to go along here all the way where the two borders meet, and this trace again. See, here's my free line again, and then go for a third trace and trace the yellow border. Starting down here. It may sometimes look, if you're very close to the one, like it's going around the entity the wrong way, but if you move your mouse a little bit further away, you can see it is actually following your direction here correctly. All the way to this point, and then we close there where we started again. And there's my green border. And there you can see we've got my green country outlined on our old world here. Okay, Remy tells me the trace line shows up fine on the video. That's great to hear. So that should have been fairly clear. All right, so we've got all our details down. Something else we might want to do is add roads. Oh, certainly something important, major trade routes. So we can just add a couple of routes between our settlements. Here's one. And yeah, it looks like we've got a bit of a weird line style here. Let's take a look. Our line style is road. And if we edit that, the pattern length is fairly small for a large world map like this. So let's take a look. If we increase the pattern length, meaning the repeating pattern that the line style has, there you can see it's set up deliberately a little bit random looking, so like a dashed line someone might do quickly with a pen. We can also perhaps make it a little less wide. See how wide are these roads? 48 units. Change line width by line style. So we're just going to select it by the line style roads. Press D for do it. And give it a new length, width of 30. Go. Which somehow the tool is a bit odd because they went on the land sheet. This is certainly not where they should belong. I suspect this style wasn't set up, this template wasn't set up with the roads in mind. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just add the roads sheet to the map and use move to sheet to put the roads on it. And then what I do like this, I quite already like the blur on the symbol outlines, so I'm just going to use and grab that blur, copy it and paste it on the roads sheet. And this way we've got a nice little blur on our roads here. Then we would need some text on the map. Let's have a look. Yeah, we do have a text sheet set up. It's a bit odd here. It's from a time before we really unified how we set up sheets and everything. So normally nowadays sheets are set up with a text sheet where all the text goes, but it's labels on this one. But that really doesn't make much of a difference. The automatic placement of text works the same way. So let's choose a country label here. Increase the size of the map and place the country name here nicely where it is readable. On a hand-drawn map like this, people would avoid placing names over labels or anything because it would be hard to read. They can't do stuff like automatic outlining or so, like we can do on a computer map. But the blur on the text here is really too strong. So I'm going to go into the labels sheet and actually turn off the blur here. Instead, what we can do, because we can add a bit of a outer glow, give that a light brown similar to the texture color, and just a small blur. Oh, that's something obviously far too large what I placed on here. We've with the 10% of drawing extents width, my range is 10% of the drawing width, which is of course far too large. So let's try 0.1. Move this a bit. There we go, hardly visible, just a little bit, and the yellow here, just like I wanted it. And again, some text for the cities. You can align the text by pressing left for left align and T for top alignment. Scale the text down a bit. Let's label the cities a little smaller. And you can see the brown outline doesn't look very good if it's on the and the sea background. And for that we do have the other labels sheet set up. Put it on the labels ocean sheet. Let's take a look at the effects here. Again, let's just grab the same outer glow effect, put it on here, disable the old effects, and change the color from a brown to a blue. Actually, it's too bright. That's actually a too bright blue. So we are finding that our color range here is not very well suited to that. So what we can do is we can define our own color. Make it a lot less saturated. Okay. Okay. Did that work? No, I just had a different blue selected. So this way. Okay, we can make the opacity less strong, so it's less obvious. There, that looks good. And there we have our text effect for labels on the ocean background. And this is how far we got within the hour of our mapping. So we've got about a fourth of our world map done here. And I think you can see how we would continue with that and fill out our map. I hope you liked that and enjoyed the style. I'm going to show you my World of Dyra map. One of the example map that came with that style first, which is a completed map in this size. Here we can go. And here you can see how I set up this map here. Actually, I should. This is still the version with the sheet effects in the old style. I should go in and update this to make it less blurry. But you can see how I did just added a lot of cities and city labels and just a few mountain ranges on the map. And this is actually my old game world where I ran role-playing adventures on for 20 years or so. So still pretty happy when I can zoom around my own map. This was originally done, the first continental outline in CC-DOS, and then went through several iterations through the different programs and even made it into fractal terrains. And the outline of these continents is an export from fractal terrains, as Sue asked in the beginning, and then into this map. Yeah, Patrick, no, I didn't get around to the rivers, that's right. And I can show you at least the rivers that are on this map here. See, they are fairly simple, just black lines. The ones, a large scale world map like this would show the most important rivers only anyway. Okay, so I hope you like this and have a good rest of the evening or day or whatever it is where you are in the world. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to you visit our live mapping session again next week. Have a good time and thanks for joining us today. Bye bye.